Article 1. The psychological effects of color on human behavior. Color is an omnipresent feature of human life, influencing emotions, perceptions, and behaviors in ways that are often subconscious. While color is a physical property of light, its interpretation is deeply psychological and culturally constructed. For centuries, artists, designers, and scientists have attempted to understand how different hues affect the human mind and behavior. In modern psychology, color theory has evolved into an interdisciplinary field that intersects with neuroscience, marketing, and design, revealing how visual stimuli can shape human experiences and decisions. The human perception of color begins with the interaction of light and the eye's photoreceptors. The retina contains specialized cells known as cones, which detect light in three primary wavelengths corresponding roughly to red, green, and blue. The brain processes signals from these cells to create the full spectrum of colors perceived. This biological mechanism is universal among humans, but the meaning and emotional impact of colors vary significantly across cultures. For instance, while white represents purity in many Western cultures, it is associated with mourning and death in parts of East Asia. Psychological studies have shown that colors can evoke specific emotional responses. Warm colors such as red, orange, and yellow tend to be stimulating and are often associated with energy, excitement, and warmth. In contrast, cool colors like blue, green, and violet promote calmness, relaxation, and introspection. For example, exposure to blue has been found to reduce heart rate and promote a sense of tranquility, whereas red can increase physiological arousal and even raise blood pressure. These effects are not merely aesthetic. They influence behavior in measurable ways, such as attention span, aggression, and appetite. In the realm of marketing and consumer behavior, color psychology plays a crucial role. Businesses strategically use color to influence customer perception and decision-making. Studies have found that up to 90% of first impressions about a product can be based on color alone. Fast food chains often use red and yellow in their branding because these colors are believed to stimulate hunger and attract attention. Conversely, financial institutions and technology companies frequently employ shades of blue to convey trust, stability, and professionalism. The deliberate use of color in branding thus functions as a subtle yet powerful tool in shaping consumer behavior. Beyond marketing, color also has notable effects in environmental and architectural design. Research in healthcare settings has shown that certain colors can influence patient recovery and mood. For example, hospitals often use soft green or blue tones in patient rooms to promote relaxation and reduce stress. Similarly, schools and workplaces that incorporate natural light and balanced color schemes tend to report improved concentration and productivity. The application of color psychology in design underscores the idea that human well-being is closely linked to sensory experiences, even those as seemingly trivial as wall color. The influence of color extends to the digital realm, where user interface (UI) and user experience (UX) design rely heavily on visual cues. Designers use color not only to create aesthetic appeal, but also to guide attention and indicate interactivity. For instance, red buttons often signal urgency or warnings, while green commonly indicates confirmation or success. Subtle color gradients and contrasts can affect readability, navigation, and user satisfaction. In this way, color functions as a form of visual communication that transcends language, shaping how people interact with digital environments. Despite the universality of color perception, cultural factors significantly shape its interpretation. Anthropologists and linguists have long noted that color categories vary across languages. Some societies recognize only a few color terms, while others have dozens. These linguistic differences influence how people perceive and categorize colors. Furthermore, cultural symbolism adds another layer of complexity. In Western weddings, brides traditionally wear white, symbolizing purity, whereas in Indian culture, Red represents joy and is the customary color for bridal attire. Such variations highlight how cultural context can override biological responses, shaping emotional associations with color. The relationship between color and emotion is also being explored through neuroscience. Functional MRI, fMRI studies reveal that color stimuli activate regions of the brain associated with emotion and memory, such as the amygdala and hippocampus. These findings suggest that color perception is not purely visual but intertwined with emotional processing. For instance, colors linked to personal memories or cultural meanings can trigger stronger neural responses. Understanding this connection may have practical applications in therapy and mental health, where color exposure could be used to influence mood or treat certain psychological disorders. However, color psychology is not without controversy. Some researchers argue that the effects of color are often overstated or inconsistent across studies. Individual differences, such as personality traits, mood, and past experiences, can alter how people respond to color stimuli. Moreover, environmental factors, like lighting, contrast, and saturation, can change how colors are perceived. As such, while general patterns exist, the relationship between color and behavior is far from deterministic. Ongoing research continues to refine these findings, incorporating advances in cognitive science and cultural psychology. In conclusion, the psychological effects of color represent a fascinating intersection of biology, culture, and perception. From influencing consumer choices to shaping emotional well-being, color wields subtle yet profound power over human experience. As research deepens our understanding of how color interacts with the brain and environment, new applications are emerging in fields ranging from healthcare design to digital media. Ultimately, color is more than a sensory phenomenon. It is a psychological language that humans continually interpret and respond to, shaping how they perceive and engage with the world around them. Article 2. The emergence of the Green Revolution in modern agriculture. The Green Revolution, a term coined in the mid-20th century, refers to the global transformation of agriculture through the adoption of high-yielding crop varieties, synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, and advanced irrigation methods. This movement began in the 1940s and gained momentum through the 1960s and 1970s, fundamentally altering food production systems worldwide. The primary goal of the Green Revolution was to combat hunger and food shortages, particularly in developing countries where population growth outpaced agricultural productivity. Its success reshaped not only global food security, but also the social and environmental dynamics of rural societies. The roots of the Green Revolution can be traced to scientific advancements in plant breeding and agronomy. A central figure in this transformation was American agronomist Norman Borlaug, who developed disease-resistant and high-yield varieties of wheat in Mexico during the 1940s and 1950s. His research demonstrated that improved genetics, combined with chemical fertilizers and irrigation, could dramatically boost productivity. Similar innovations soon spread to rice, maize, and other staple crops. These technologies were later introduced to countries such as India and the Philippines, transforming their agricultural output and helping them move from food-deficient to self-sufficient nations. One of the key features of the Green Revolution was the emphasis on high-yielding varieties, HYVs, of staple crops. These crops were designed to respond effectively to chemical fertilizers and irrigation, producing far greater yields than traditional varieties. For example, the introduction of IR8, a high-yielding rice variety developed at the International Rice Research Institute in the Philippines, revolutionized rice production across Asia. However, HYVs required specific growing conditions and inputs, making their adoption dependent on access to infrastructure, technology, and financial resources, conditions not always available to poorer farmers. The Green Revolution also led to major policy changes. Governments in developing countries began investing heavily in agricultural infrastructure, including irrigation systems, rural roads, and storage facilities. International organizations such as the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation provided funding and technical assistance. These collaborations marked a new era of global cooperation in agricultural development. As a result, cereal production in countries like India and Pakistan nearly doubled between the 1960s and 1980s, helping to avert widespread famine and stabilizing food prices. Despite these successes, the Green Revolution had unintended social consequences. Wealthier landowners who could afford fertilizers, machinery, and irrigation benefited disproportionately, while small-scale and subsistence farmers often struggled to compete. This deepened economic inequalities in rural areas and sometimes led to social unrest. Additionally, traditional farming practices and crop diversity declined, as monoculture systems became dominant. The shift toward high-input agriculture created dependency on commercial seed suppliers and chemical companies, altering the economic structure of rural communities. Environmental impacts also emerged as a major concern. Intensive use of fertilizers and pesticides led to soil degradation, water contamination, and the decline of beneficial insect populations. Excessive irrigation contributed to salinization of soils and depletion of groundwater resources. Over time, these environmental challenges threatened the long-term sustainability of the gains achieved during the Green Revolution. Critics argued that the short-term increase in yields came at the cost of ecological balance and resource conservation. In response to these challenges, scientists and policymakers began advocating for a second Green Revolution, emphasizing sustainability and environmental stewardship. This new phase promotes the use of renewable inputs, precision agriculture, and genetically modified crops designed to withstand droughts and pests. Integrated pest management and organic farming practices are being revisited as alternatives to chemical dependence. The objective is to combine technological innovation with ecological awareness, ensuring that food security can be achieved without further harming the planet. The legacy of the Green Revolution is complex. On one hand, it saved millions from starvation, increased food availability, and spurred economic growth in many developing nations. On the other, it contributed to environmental degradation, socioeconomic inequality, and the loss of traditional agricultural knowledge. The challenge today lies in learning from both its successes and its failures. As global population continues to rise and climate change threatens agricultural stability, the lessons of the Green Revolution serve as both a warning and a guide for the future of food production. The ongoing debate about the Green Revolution highlights the tension between technological progress and environmental sustainability. Supporters argue that without the advances of the mid-20th century, global hunger would have been far worse. Critics counter that technological dependence and environmental damage have created new vulnerabilities. Finding a balance between productivity and sustainability remains one of the defining challenges of modern agriculture. Future progress will depend on innovative strategies that integrate science, policy, and community-based solutions to meet the world's growing food demands responsibly. In conclusion, the Green Revolution stands as one of the most transformative episodes in human history. It exemplifies how science and innovation can reshape societies, alleviate hunger, and drive economic change. Yet it also reveals the complex interplay between human ambition, ecological limits, and social equity. The next chapter in agricultural development will likely depend not on maximizing yields at any cost, but on harmonizing productivity with sustainability, ensuring that the achievements of the past do not become the burdens of the future. Article 3. The cultural and historical significance of the silk in ancient China. Silk, one of the most prized materials in human history, played a pivotal role in shaping the economy, culture, and diplomacy of ancient China. For more than 2 millennia, it was not merely a luxurious textile but a symbol of power, refinement, and innovation. The development of sericulture, the cultivation of silkworms and the production of silk, became one of China's most closely guarded secrets, contributing to its economic strength and cultural prestige. The spread of silk beyond China's borders helped establish one of the world's earliest global trade networks, profoundly influencing societies from Asia to Europe. The origins of silk production in China trace back to the Neolithic period, around 3000 BCE, during the reign of the mythical Empress Lisu. According to legend, Lisu discovered silk when a cocoon fell into her tea, and she observed the fine threads unraveling in hot water. Archaeological evidence supports early silk production in the Yangshao and Liangzhu cultures, where silk fragments and weaving tools have been uncovered. These discoveries suggest that sericulture was practiced long before written records existed, marking one of humanity's earliest examples of textile craftsmanship. By the Shang and Zhou dynasties, 1600–256 BCE, silk production had become an established industry. Silk was used not only for clothing, but also for religious rituals, writing materials, and diplomatic gifts. Its use extended beyond practical purposes to serve as a marker of social status. Only the nobility and the royal court were permitted to wear silk garments, while commoners wore hemp or linen. This distinction reflected the material's role as a visual representation of hierarchy and refinement in Chinese society. The mastery of sericulture required intricate knowledge of biology and craftsmanship. The process began with the rearing of silkworms on mulberry leaves until they spun their cocoons. These cocoons were then softened in boiling water to extract the delicate fibers, which were carefully reeled, spun, dyed, and woven into fabric. The level of skill involved made silk production a highly specialized occupation, often passed down through generations. Women played a central role in this process, from tending silkworms to weaving textiles, making sericulture an essential part of domestic and economic life in ancient China. Silk's exceptional qualities, its sheen, strength, and lightness, made it a highly desirable commodity beyond China's borders. By the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE 220 CE, Chinese silk had become one of the most valuable exports in the ancient world. This period witnessed the formal establishment of the Silk Road, a vast network of trade routes connecting China with Central Asia, the Middle East, and eventually Europe. Silk was exchanged for horses, glassware, spices, and precious stones, linking distant civilizations and facilitating not only trade but also cultural exchange. The spread of silk had profound cultural and diplomatic implications. Chinese silk garments reached the Roman Empire, where they were considered symbols of luxury and sophistication. Roman senators lamented the flow of gold to the east for silk purchases, fearing economic imbalance. Meanwhile, in Central Asia, Persia, and India, silk was integrated into local traditions and artistic expressions. The material became a medium through which Chinese aesthetics and technology influenced foreign art, religion, and commerce. To protect its monopoly, China maintained strict secrecy over silk production techniques for centuries. Smuggling silkworm eggs or mulberry seeds out of the empire was punishable by death. However, around the 6th century CE, the secret began to spread when 2 Byzantine monks, reportedly sent by Emperor Justinian, smuggled silkworm eggs to the Byzantine Empire inside hollow bamboo canes. This event marked the beginning of silk production outside China and diminished the Chinese monopoly, though the quality of Chinese silk remained unmatched for centuries. Beyond its economic value, silk carried deep symbolic meaning in Chinese culture. It was associated with purity, immortality, and harmony, qualities reflected in poetry, art, and philosophy. Silk banners adorned temples, and embroidered garments were used in ceremonies to honor ancestors and deities. Moreover, silk became an instrument of diplomacy. Chinese emperors often offered silk as tribute or gifts to neighboring states, strengthening alliances and asserting cultural superiority. The technological innovations surrounding silk production also had lasting effects on Chinese society. Advances in loom design, dyeing techniques, and textile patterns fostered artistic creativity and influenced other crafts such as calligraphy and painting. The silk industry encouraged urbanization and specialization, contributing to the development of trade guilds and regional economies. In this way, silk production shaped both the material and intellectual culture of China for centuries. In conclusion, the story of silk in ancient China illustrates how a single material can transform civilizations. It was both a product of scientific ingenuity and a catalyst for global interaction. Silk connected people, economies, and ideas across continents, bridging cultural divides and laying the foundation for international exchange. Even today, silk remains a symbol of elegance and craftsmanship, a testament to the enduring legacy of China's ancient innovation and the threads of history it wove across the world. Article 4. The emergence of the digital economy. The late 20th and early 21st centuries have witnessed a dramatic transformation in the structure of global economies, marked by the rise of what economists refer to as the digital economy. This term broadly encompasses all economic activities that rely on digital technologies, particularly the internet, mobile communication, and data analytics. Unlike traditional economies rooted in physical goods and manual labor, the digital economy thrives on information as its principal resource. This shift has altered not only how businesses operate but also how individuals work, consume, and interact, ushering in a new era of economic interconnectivity. The origins of the digital economy can be traced to the rapid spread of the internet during the 1990s, a period when information became widely accessible for the first time in human history. Early adopters, including technology firms and forward-thinking entrepreneurs, recognized the potential of digital networks to bypass traditional market barriers. Companies such as Amazon and eBay pioneered online commerce, while others like Google and Yahoo revolutionized information retrieval. The proliferation of personal computers and later smartphones accelerated these trends, creating an infrastructure that allowed digital transactions to become a part of everyday life. A defining characteristic of the digital economy is the rise of platform-based business models. Unlike traditional firms that produce goods or services directly, digital platforms act as intermediaries that connect users, producers, and consumers. For instance, Uber and Airbnb do not own cars or hotels, but instead provide digital spaces where supply and demand can meet efficiently. These platforms rely heavily on data collection and algorithmic decision-making, which optimize pricing, user experience, and market reach. As a result, they often scale faster and operate with fewer resources than conventional enterprises. However, this new model of economic organization has also raised important questions about competition and market dominance. Many platform companies benefit from what economists call network effects, meaning that their value increases as more people use them. This dynamic often leads to a concentration of power in a small number of firms, as seen in the global dominance of a few technology giants. Critics argue that such concentration can stifle innovation, limit consumer choice, and give companies excessive influence over personal data. Regulators around the world are thus faced with the challenge of balancing innovation with fairness in the digital marketplace. Another fundamental aspect of the digital economy is the role of data as a new form of capital. In traditional economies, value was created primarily through the ownership of physical assets such as land, machinery, or raw materials. In contrast, digital enterprises derive much of their value from the collection and analysis of user data. This information allows businesses to predict consumer behavior, target advertisements, and design products tailored to specific audiences. Data analytics has therefore become central to economic competitiveness, leading some scholars to describe data as the oil of the 21st century. The digital economy has also redefined the nature of work. The emergence of remote work, freelance platforms, and automation has blurred the boundaries between professional and personal life. While digital technologies have created new employment opportunities and allowed individuals to work flexibly from any location, they have also contributed to job insecurity and the erosion of traditional labor protections. The so-called gig economy, where workers perform short-term, task-based jobs, illustrates both the empowerment and precarity that digital labor can bring. This shift has prompted policymakers to reconsider definitions of employment and worker rights. From a global perspective, the digital economy has generated both opportunities and inequalities. On one hand, it has enabled developing countries to participate more actively in international trade by providing digital services and software rather than relying solely on physical exports. On the other hand, disparities in access to technology, known as the digital divide, have deepened economic gaps between nations and even within societies. Those lacking affordable internet access or digital literacy skills risk being excluded from the benefits of economic globalization, reinforcing existing patterns of inequality. The environmental implications of the digital economy have also come under increasing scrutiny. While digitalization can reduce the need for physical production and travel, it has simultaneously increased energy consumption through data centers, blockchain networks, and the manufacturing of electronic devices. The global demand for rare earth minerals, used in smartphones and batteries, has raised ecological and ethical concerns. As governments and corporations strive for sustainability, there is a growing emphasis on developing greener technologies and improving the energy efficiency of digital infrastructure. Despite its challenges, the digital economy continues to expand, integrating artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and the Internet of Things into nearly every aspect of daily life. Its capacity to generate innovation, foster entrepreneurship, and enhance connectivity remains unprecedented. However, ensuring that the benefits of this transformation are distributed equitably requires thoughtful governance, international cooperation, and public awareness. As societies navigate this digital era, the question is not whether the digital economy will dominate the future, but how humanity will adapt to its profound and continuing evolution.